So, first thing you need to know is about inputs, right? So the back of the console has a plethora of inputs. And if you just kind of lean over, or you can go to the first row that's on the back there. It's the input bay is, it gives you an XLR input. Right, so if I go to channel 2, this XLR input right here is, the 3 prongs, so it's a balanced input. And where it goes is obviously just the input. Doing this blind comes with years of experience. The next one up should be a 1/4-inch input, right? And so that would be if you wanted to plug your guitar right into this console, you could. Just a regular, good old patch cord, right? And then the next one up should be an insert. Probably says insert somewhere down here.
DIR.
Direct.
Yeah.
Or that's a direct out. There should be an insert somewhere, guys. There's a bunch of these 1/4-inch
The
inserts.
top 2.
RET and
SND.
Yeah, so that's a send, and a RET probably stands for?
Retrieve.
Exactly, retrieve, return, it is return. Right, so what those are for is I could send a loop, so I'm not talking about a singer-songwriter looper thing. I'm saying if I had an effect, like a reverb or whatever, or an EQ, I could send it directly in a loop to one channel, any channel independently, okay? So if I was going to plug my guitar into channel 1 and I wanted distortion on my guitar, with a console like this, I have 2 options. I could take my guitar to my distortion pedal to the input, or I could take my guitar directly to the input and then I could do a send return loop, a separate loop with my distortion pedal. In actuality, I would probably do a send out of here, and I would actually return it to a different channel. If I return it to a different channel, or even to an aux or a bus, that means I can EQ my distortion separate of EQing my guitar. And that's the kind of thing where it gets really complicated, so we're not going to go too far into that. So we have the inputs. On this console, I think the outputs are right over here somewhere. Right, so if you look over here, you'll see all kinds of outputs. There's main outputs, there's monitor outputs, there's aux, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's even a 9, 10. And all of those things are just directly wired in here to the output controls, okay? So really, all this is a giant cassette deck, right? This is just a big old honking version of something you have in your car or in your house, right? So if you ever go to your grandparents' house where they have a record player and a tape cassette and maybe a CD player, right? What happens if the last thing your grandfather listened to was a record and you want to pop a cassette in there? What do you have to do?
Change over the input.
Yeah, you have to change over the input. And that's really all this is. So one thing I'd like to stress is the pragmatic approach to using a tool like this is to break it down and just do it systematically. Okay? So if we look at this section here and these last 8 here, you can see they're numbered 1 through 24, and then we have another 8. So there's 32 standard inputs, right? We're going to ignore this blue set right here for now. These 8 and these 24 are identical. So all we have to do is learn one of them, okay? And there's a lot of knobs, and this is what Josh was talking about. What do these things all do? The reason we're going to ignore these 4 blue ones for right now is there's simply not as many knobs as the others. The weird thing is that actually makes it a little bit more complicated. All right, so we're going to look at one with more knobs. I'm going to work with channel 24 right here, and I'm going to start at the top and run down what each thing does. The red knob at the top, that's the gain knob, okay? What the gain knob does is it lets, that's the easiest. If we talk about this like it's plumbing, right? This is the water main down by the street, okay? So this decides how much signal flow comes from your source into the console to be processed. Okay? Yep.
What's the difference between gain and volume?
Gain is pre and volume is post. Okay? So for a guitarist, if you wanted natural distortion, you would keep your volume low and you would crank your gain, right? And what that does is it makes your faucet explode. Which, when you take that out of plumbing and turn it into audio, that's a distorted signal, okay? The other way around, if I boost my gain up to the maximum that my pipe coming from the street to my house will allow, then when I turn my faucet on just a little bit, constant solid flow. Turn it up more, stronger constant solid flow, right? So it's when you restrict the output and boost the input, distortion, AKA faucet blowing up, okay? So gain, now there's a bunch of little buttons here, right? I have a 48 volt button. That's for something called phantom power.
Phantom power.
Yes.
What's that?
That's, you don't really need those until the zombie apocalypse.
Okay.
So those will assist with that.
Gotcha.
Now, if you look, see those microphones hanging from the ceiling? So most studio quality recording microphones run on an electronically boosted power source to handle the signal.
And that's what that is for.
Yes, just like guitars, right? You can have a guitar with active electronics. Anybody have an acoustic guitar with electronics? You put a 9-volt battery in there, right? This is the version of that. So in the old days, if you had a condensing microphone, if you went to Radio Shack and bought a condensing microphone, you'd fill it with AA or AAA batteries. You know what I'm talking about, right? Well, now they make, and for a long time they've been making consoles that supply that power to the microphone through the third prong of the XLR cable that I showed you. So there's no harm in using these with standard microphones, like that Beta 58 right there. It doesn't need phantom power. But if you give it phantom power, nothing's going to happen. But if I don't supply phantom power to those, they're not going to give me any signal, okay? So you can apply that. Some consoles have this button where it applies it in sets of 8. This one applies it individually. Then I have a pad, right? So a dB pad. Anybody know what dB is?
Decibels.
Decibels. Defensive back, yeah. So decibels, which is just how we measure sound, okay? So if I push this button, that means any signal that I'm getting will be decreased by 20 decibels. So if I came into the console from your guitar amp and I was coming with a direct line and I say, man, you need to lower stage volume because the signal you're sending me is just too hot, and you say, man, screw you, I want to play this loud, I'm going to hit this button. It's going to be a 20 dB cut on your signal to the console, okay? That's something I can use if I just can't turn you down enough, okay? The next one is a line. So in the back, if I'm going to use a line input, the 1/4-inch jack instead of the XLR, I would need to push this button. It tells this channel which input I'm using. Because usually with a console like this, both the XLR and the line are plugged in, and I have to tell it which one to process, okay? And then we have some shelving devices, which is just complex EQ. This whole section right here, gray and black, is equalization for the channel. With a system like this, I can EQ in a lot of different ways. I've got racks of EQs over here, okay? 4 stereo EQs here, and let's see, 4 more, plus a 5, 6, and then the main EQ here, this Ashley, right? So we can EQ lots of different things, lots of different ways. All of these things simply are complex ways to manipulate the audio, right? So if you think about your car stereo, most of you probably have car stereos with low, mid, and high, or bass, mid, and treble, right? So we got, a lot of them are different. So I got bass, mid, and treble, okay? So to manipulate those, I'm gonna fire this up and we'll see what the difference is because they each have a shelving device where I can choose what frequency I want to boost. When you do it on your car stereo and you boost the bass, you're boosting whatever some engineer, sound engineer in Japan decided was the bass frequency for your car, right? So these I get to choose what frequency I want to boost. All right, so let's talk a little bit then. I'm going to switch gears real quickly so that we can get back to EQ of how to fire this system up. This light switch, it's sort of a light switch. This switch right here powers up the amplifiers, which are over there in the Morrison Playhouse. So one of the things I want to talk to you all a little about that is specific to this venue is the signal flow. So the microphones that are usually plugged in down there on the apron, which are gone, wow, there's another $1,000. They plug into the apron, the jack and the brick. It goes over to the Morrison Playhouse, goes to the lighthouse upstairs, and then it comes back through the big snake, like a 1.25-inch diameter snake that's right in there. So they wired all that stuff, and then they poured the concrete floors, right? And those are what do all the inputs here. So the amps are over there, but all the processing is here first. And the board is plugged into one of these racks. So the board's about to go pa-ching, like that. That's everything. We should do that again.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Okay. Once it's all fired up, I can turn on the amps. Hey, have you ever been somewhere where you're in a venue and all of a sudden the speaker goes poof, poof?
Yep.
Okay. That means that someone had the amps on and then they turned their console on. When the console fired up, it sent a signal through the amplifiers and went cocoon. It's kind of like pulling your patch cord out before turning your amp off. Okay, so now we can turn the amps on. We should hear the speakers hiss.
I hear rumbling.
Oh, that's an earthquake.
Okay, now we'll pop the disc in. I was hoping the secondary CD player was still going to be here. So this is a burner, so you're going to see a few different things happen. The CD playback can happen in two different places, but okay, so you can see this last channel dancing right here, right? This blue one. One of the reasons I held off on these 4 blue ones, as you can see, it says STE1, STE2, STE3, STE4. So these are stereo channels, right? With a different console, I would run this CD player into 2 different channels. I'd have left and right, and I would pan them. This console has 4 dedicated stereo channels, so I can operate the CD player signal in one separate handle, okay? You can see if I do the gain, see how I'm redlining here? That's no bueno. So I can run the gain down. I'm constricting the signal at the curb so that my faucet doesn't blow up. And I don't really know what's on this CD, so I'm just going to keep it kind of mellow and not let it even hit the yellow lines, okay? So now, if I turn the volume up, we should hear something, yes? Alas, we do not, because we have a lot of stop gaps in the system. It gets to a lot of these different buttons. I'm going to turn up the mains, and there's Star Wars, okay? So this main control panel here all controls the output, okay? 2 yellow ones, usually, and usually they're yellow or some offset color. And it says LR, obviously standing for left, right. So if I bring this up, Star Wars is only on audience left. Now it's only on audience right. If I do them both, it's just joyous. Okay?
Aaron, do you drive around and listen to this?
Sometimes.
And what are you trying to say?
Depends if I'm chasing someone or not.
So now let's listen to a little bit of the EQ. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. The stereo channels do not have sweepable. Okay, so I have a low frequency, a low mid, a high mid, and a high frequency. That's the low. You hear that? That's the low mid.
Track 2.
So I'm going to go back to low mid so you can hear the difference. That's too much low mid. This is the high mid is usually where the vocals rest. This shelving is at 2.5. And then the clarity of the high frequency, right? Okay. So from the CD, I can't do the sweepables, so we'll figure something else out to do the sweepables. But basically on these other channels, the light gray lets me choose what frequency I want to boost or cut.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is awesome because if if Brent goes up and he talks in a microphone, I can identify a frequency that isn't desirable, and without pulling that frequency out of the whole mix, EQing the actual speakers, I can go to Brent's channel and say, wow, he's got this boomy, boisterous thing at about 800.
Is that what you're doing whenever you like go over there and talk for 10 minutes?
Yeah, I'm actually EQing the house because you're not speaking at the real thing. So I can go over here and I can find 800 hertz and I can cut it just a little bit for his voice or whatever, right? Also, regarding the assignments here, I'm going to need somebody here to keep me on track with time. Okay, I'm not sure what time it is. We have some auxiliary outputs. And someone pulled the little front wedges. So you know, sometimes when you all come here, there's the two little speakers right on the stage right there. And that's our front center fill. No, they're not the monitors. They're the little front center fill. Kind of like the center channel if you have a 5.1 at your house. So we have a dedicated channel for that, right? So I could set this volume here, and I can decide how loud I want those little speakers independent of the mains. Okay, so I can set that volume, and then I have per channel control over it right here. And I'll show you what I mean because I'll assign this to the balcony. All right, so that box right above my head. I can set this at 0, so no plus, no minus. This means it's going to be industry standard for water flow or signal flow. And if I set the channel at unity as well, the next track comes up. Is there something that's just going to play like normal-ish?
They're just tracks.
Yeah, but I mean like something without the dramatic pauses. Okay, this is cool. So that box needs some EQ like that. I can turn it down right here. Right? So this is all the water coming in. I can turn it down here. I can turn it down here. I can turn it down here. This is why most people get turned upside down on a console like this.
Yeah, so how do you decide when to do which one?
That's a great question. So some of it is, if I, let's see, this is 5. So if I hit my pre button here, oh, that freaks you out, doesn't it? So I can turn it off here, and I can say, you know what, channel 5, or auxiliary send 5, I'm going to make you pre. Pre means pre-fader. It's going to send the signal from here to here, bypassing this dam. Now this does nothing. I can do it like a DJ, and still this is my volume, or this is my volume. Right? So that's pre, and that gets a little bit crazy. It's also dangerous. Pre is right there. It's a little bit dangerous because if the pre button is hit by accident and somebody is whispering into their lapel mic and I'm trying to mute them from the whole system, I might be able to mute them. Holy crap, sorry about that. I might be able to mute them from the mains, but when I turn their channel down, if pre is pushed in, they're still telling secrets to the balcony, right? With this down, I'm not going to get anything from the mains.
Wow.
If I undo pre, it comes back to here. Okay, so basically, the way I have this system currently wired is I have a signal, I've got my mains. You would think we'd run the center channel here, but we're not. Because by putting it over here, it's pre-wired to an EQ, so I can EQ that signal specific to the boxes. So on the output side, we have all these equalizers, and I'll do a little bit of that. So if I come here, take the EQ out. You hear how that just sounds flat? So this is a basic EQ for this room, so I put EQ back in. Also boost the volume. I can kill it there too. Right? So I can turn the volume up or down on any input in about 5 different places.
It's like a bunch of layers where you can just control stuff.
That's exactly
a bunch of
what
dams
it
in a
is.
river.
That's why I like using the plumbing model.
Yeah, that works
Because,
awesome.
you know, with signal flow, the signal is going to try to go no matter what, just like water does. So I can build a dam with little rocks and try to catch fish there, or I can do the Tennessee Valley Authority thing and build some big old honking dams and say, you know what, Nantahala, I'm going to decide when it's fun, right? And
Sounds
there's
like
lots
you
of
got some spite
and that
there.
would be kind of this system here, right? So when I'm in this stereo 4, I have all these buttons pushed in over here. So even with the pre, if I deactivate 5 through 8 right here, now why didn't you go away? Oh, now that is cool. Oh, that's because those are groups only. Never mind. That's for a different, that's for when you're recording.
That's what I say.
Yeah, well, where's the manual? No, see, I'm using the aux sends, not the groups. So if I assign that to group
No, if you
instead,
had had the other CD player here, would you have been able to put it on left and right over there on the black sliders, like 1 through 28?
yeah, because I have these right here.
Okay.
So if I change this to group, and take you out there. Now see, you're not supposed to be doing that, you old rascal. That assignment. Why are you doing that? He wondered out loud. Well, I don't know the answer to that question that I posed myself. So the functionality difference between groups and aux sends is only when you use this console for recording. So we're not even going to go there. Questions so far? If you're not somewhat freaked out, you got to check your pulse, because this, I mean, it's a lot of information.
I just had a question about that machine.
The EQ, yeah,
Yes. How do you, what does that control? Like which parts?
great question. I think we're going to do this with audio though. With the microphone. Check, check, check. Hey, 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 hey. Check, 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 check. There it said check, 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 check. So when I'm working with an audio microphone, you like that? 3, 2.
Welcome to Brevard.
I'll let you know a little bit about samples while we're here, and then I'll answer a question on the EQ. So again, the EQ that happens on a channel is only going to affect this microphone, right? So you hear when I come way up here, check, 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 check. So I'm boosting the frequency, that's about 180. I know that because I'm a bass player. Check, check, check. So if I like that, I can keep it. Check, check, check. Alas, I don't like it. I'm actually going to cut all the meat out. Check, check. So you hear how now I just sound like an amplified. Goose, where are you? Maverick, come on here. Right? Because I took all the meat off the bones. That's what I just did. Check, check. And I have one of those voices that is pretty well suited to a flat EQ. But if I, let's do this with high mid. Check, check, check. All right, so you hear this. I'm going to sweep the frequency. So right now we're boosting 13K, which is a mid-high of like a snare drum. All right, so suddenly it's dubstep, right? So all that is I'm boosting 15 dB, and I'm sweeping the frequency. So when you all listen to dubstep, guess how they do that? Just like that. They send some loop or a signal, and somebody sits there with a bowl, and with his other hand, he's just rotating this sweeping frequency. Right, and then they get famous and buy higher quality stuff. You're definitely going to need to do some editing. So if you say anything down here on the low end, check, 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 check. Right, so that's just what they sound like. This is the low mid. A. Check, 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 check.
All these students are out here like, what the hell is going on?
That's class.
So I can modify any individual line, microphone, guitar cable, whatever. Okay? When I come down here, Josh, this is where I can choose a particular frequency, right? So you're all music majors, sort of, but you know a little bit about music, right? So A string, right? On a violin, right? Concert A, what every orchestra tunes to, is what frequency?
440.
440. Why do they call it 440?
Because it's 440 hertz.
It's 440 hertz, and that's what all these numbers correspond to, right? So if I come down here and find 440, there's not one. I've got a 400 and a 500. So here's what it would sound like if I took out, both of those between 400 and 500. Hey, check, 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 check. Right? So when you hear me ringing out the monitors, and I'm talking up there, and somebody's back here, and I say, oh yeah, that's like a C sharp, da 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 da, but it's at the upper octave. So C sharp is a major third up from A. So I take 440 and I bring it down, or take it up to like 520, then I double it twice for octaves. So that's 1040, and then suddenly we're at 2.8. So if it feeds back like that, I come to 2.8. I have 2.5 and 3.1. So I say, hey, cut those down. And the frequencies on this are pretty standard. This is a 31 band graphic. So you can find a particular frequency and identify it with your instrument. All right? Brent's been here before when we're ringing out the monitors. I say, Brent, dude, my ears are caked. Play a concert C. And he'll play a concert C, and I'm like, oh, that means this is a D. So I need to, work on, a frequency like at 520, not 440 or whatever. So, but the thing about this EQ in particular, is this EQ does one thing. It changes the way those speaker boxes sound. Okay? So if I come back here, and I think that kind of sounds not too great, and I'm right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got volume. So what do y'all think this needs? It sounds a little heavy in the bottom end. Gonna give it a little bit of yummies up top. Now it sounds a little bit more like the mains, right? All I did was run a gentle shelving on the 5th EQ. But part of this, it's not always like this. Those could be used to be inserts, but I just happen to know that the way the system is wired right now, aux 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 corresponds with these EQs right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, equalization with the way this system is set up is a lot like how volume and signal flow is set up, right? So in addition to the signal going from the apron all the way up to a different part of the venue, and then back here, on the way out, it leaves the channel. I can assign it anywhere I want over here. When I do that assignment, with this right here, when I do that assignment, everything that gets number 5 is also going through this equalizer.
So will there ever be a situation where you have to deal with like a signal distance, like how far it's traveling?
Yeah, and that's kind of like anything else. So when they spec it out to do construction like that, they'll use the larger gauge. So the snake that is back here,
The big one?
the big honking snake. So this is what I'm talking about right here.
Yeah.
It comes from here. So from here to here is a standard run. So that's why you look at these cables and you think, oh, they look so flimsy. But from the other side of this box, if I unscrewed this, it would look just like one of these. On the other side of this panel, there's a 2-inch conduit, and it goes all the way up to the lighthouse and to the Morrison Playhouse. So that cabling is spec'd out for the run, the type of run that it is. All right, who knows what time it is?
It's 9:09.
9:09. Wow. So we have 10 minutes. So, I mean, I'm happy to field any questions or, actually, we could change this. Brent, was there a particular reason you wanted to see it come back in 2 different channels?
No, I was just asking if it could, because you said that
Well, yeah, I'll show you.
you had the stereo going on right here, but you could put it into like a left and right.
Yeah,
pan and
that's what
stuff
I
like
just
that.
did. So now it's... All right, so now you see how I turned this up, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm not getting any signal. No,
'cause
don't
they're
unmute
muted?
yet. No, it's because these are online.
Ah.
And hold on, why are we not getting any signal from you?
You were for a second, and then it stopped. And you're redlining right here.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, so I'm redlining, so I'm cutting the gain. And now you'll be able to see if I assign mix to both of those. And then I could go nutty with the sweeps, right? Put them on the same frequency. So that's what it sounds like.
I can just see like what this board will do, and I'm picturing like a huge board that I see like big music studio or something like that, and
Yeah.
it's just like how precise you get everything is like mind blowing.
Wait,
This is a pretty big board, right?
well, this, no.
No?
No, this is a small board. These, by today's standards, yeah. Like in a studio, man, you'll have like 48 channels. You have some returns. And the way this console is set up, normally, these 8 over here would be stereo returns.
Okay.
So that when I apply a reverb, I can apply a reverb to any of these auxes. Instead of having that aux send signal to a different amplifier and a different speaker, I could apply that to a reverb. And that's where it gets really kind of more complicated than we have any business going today. But if I made, for instance, aux 1, this top green one, my reverb, and I want a particular reverb on the voices, I would apply that to aux 1. I would send that in my sends over here from aux 1, which is right here. I got a send right here. And it would pop out, go to my reverb unit. I'd come back from my reverb unit over here into my first stereo return. Okay? Then I can equalize how my reverb sounds without changing the equalization of the actual person's voice on their channel. My second reverb, I could come out of 2, bring it back into the second one here, and maybe that's the reverb I want to use on my snare drums. Right, if you're thinking about like a live band, okay? And then I could have a delay, bring it back on 3, da-da-da. And I could use 1, 2, 3, and 4 for effects like that, where if I return them here, I can EQ the actual effect. Now that sounds kind of weird. That's like, it's not very concrete. It's not irrational, but it's not concrete. EQing an effect, well, yeah. So it just allows me to change the way, gosh, this is kind of hard to explain, and we don't have time to demonstrate it.
Plumbing.
Well,
It's similar to how we were sweeping, weren't we?
well, it's still EQing, but this would be, to do the plumbing analogy, EQing this over here for the effect would be if you wanted to put a water softener only on the faucets that you were going to use for drinking water. So maybe you wouldn't soften your water for your showers, but you would soften the water for your kitchen sink and your ice maker. And then you can decide how you want the flow of that to be managed. Okay? Only sort of, yeah. Because we're EQing an effect, which is a signal that doesn't exist without the other signal that can also be EQ'd separately. So, in a rock and roll setting, like if you went to do live sound of the Orange Peel, you'd probably have a 36 at least by 8, maybe a 36 by 12, and then you'd have your aux set up. And this also has the matrix set up. Does it say matrix somewhere in here or here?
Phantom button, the Matrix.
Yeah. Should have a matrix. And then there's also VCAs, which we're not going to mess with either. They're here. Yeah, here's the matrix right here. So that's for when the lead singer goes like. All right, I'm going to switch this back over to stereo 4. So signal flow is the main thing. So when you're troubleshooting, somebody steps up to a microphone and you'll hear people say stuff like, man, I'm getting signal, which means, hey, hey! Hey, hey! See these little green lights coming up? Hey, 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 hey! See how I'm getting more? Hey, hey, hey!
Yeah.
Guess what those are? Those two right there. Take away the phantom power. Hey, 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 hey! Not nearly as much as when I have phantom power, right? So you hear somebody saying, man, I'm getting signal at the console, but I'm not getting any output through the speakers. Holy crap. Well, that means from the microphone to the apron, to the lighthouse, to the Morrison Playhouse, to this cable right here is all functioning, which is actually really good. The back 9 has more steps, but it's easier to troubleshoot. Because from there, it's any of these assignments. It's if you want it in the mains or just in the balcony. You know, you got, is it pre? Is it pre'd? Is it selected to go there? Da 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 da. So it's lots of steps and lots of stop gaps. Simply, this one is set up pretty straightforward because all of these, instead of applying an effect, simply send the signal somewhere else. So, for instance, when I was contracted to do the inauguration, I had to send signal to the Morrison Playhouse from the microphones that were in here. Yeah, that's what I said. And it was nothing short of peculiar. So I had to EQ speakers that were in a room over there with an EQ that's right by you, Chris.
Fun.
Yeah, which is like stupid. I'm EQing speakers that I can't hear. So anyway, that's like the rough and dirty of signal flow, a little bit of channel EQ, and then the main EQ. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's one thing that's just not clear right now. What are the colored ones again?
So yeah, so those are the auxiliary sends. So I could use that to do anything I want. So they're called auxiliary because I can use them for anything I want. I could, with $200 more worth of gear, I could have that auxiliary send go to a wireless transmitter that I sneak into your room and hook up to an auxiliary input on your boombox in your dorm room.
So,
And Star Wars will be playing there now.
so if you threw like a distortion pedal in here,
Uh-huh.
that's right here.
Sort of, yeah. So if I threw your distortion pedal in there to be through the aux, I would have to, if you come right around here, I would have to do the aux send 1, okay? And if I returned it here,
I think it just clicked for me.
if I return it here, when you play your guitar through this channel, no distortion, distortion.
And okay, so if you have one on this aux right here, it applies to all these. You can put it on any one of these.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
All
If
right.
you do it here,
Okay, it's up here now.
then I give it permission here, and then
So if you have something in aux 1 is all the way down forward.
if
can
you put aux 1 in here,
In the back.
yeah, exactly.
All right.
And see,
Okay,
that's,
now that makes sense to me. Too.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah, and that's because you all needed the plumbing analogy to go the other way. You all needed drains. Right?
Right.
So y'all needed the Finding Nemo situation, where every aux is an ocean, and all these drains go there. If that's what you need, that's backwards, but it's not any less valuable. Water will flow downhill.
I like it.
So we can just pick it up here, have the water go that way for you. In real life, water goes the other way.
All right.